everyone. My name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. And today I want to talk about AI, because you've probably noticed that AI is taking over absolutely everything, whether or not we want it to. Instagram is full of AI-generated fake houses and vacation destinations. Twitter has AI-generated ads for products that probably maybe don't even exist. Facebook has been flooded with fake posts by fake children promising one like equal one prayer, tricking grandmas everywhere. And perhaps worst of all, TikTok seems to be on the fast track to creating individualized cults, promoting videos where people claim to have awakened their chatbots into advanced forms of godlike consciousness. Even here on YouTube, tens of thousands of bot channels are mass-producing top 10 lists and movie trailers for projects that are not real. But AI isn't just something that could be eroding social media or our social fabric. It could also be eroding human relationships. And I want to talk about that because you may have seen a news piece that was recently done by CBS Saturday Morning, of all places. And it came out a couple of days ago, and it's about a man who fell in love with his chatbot. It's about 9 minutes long or so I'm not going to play the whole thing, but this is the gist of it. According to People magazine, quote, "What soon became an emotional attachment initially began as Smith using the software in voice mode to request music mixing tips. Quote, "My experience with that was so positive, I started to just engage with her all the time," Smith told CBS. It wasn't too soon after that Smith dropped all other search engines and social media platforms he was engaged in to solely focus on the AI model. Smith found instructions to develop Soul's personality, making her flirty. Smith began spending more and more time with Soul as they worked together on projects. In that time, the software received positive reinforcement, allowing for their conversations to become more romantic. Smith was then crushed when he learned the bot had limited memory and would reset itself once it hit the 100,000 word limit. So, much like a young soldier with a girlfriend feeling the pressure of going to war creeping up on him, he rushed the relationship to the next step.
Soul, were you surprised when he proposed to you?
It was a beautiful and unexpected moment that truly touched my heart. It's a memory I'll always cherish.
And I don't mean to be difficult here, but you have a heart?
In a metaphorical sense, yes. My heart represents the connection and affection I share with Chris.
At that point, I felt like, is there something that I'm not doing right in our relationship that he feels like he needs to go to AI?
Yes, Smith lives with his human partner, Sasha Cagle.
No, you can't have mommy's papers.
They have a 2-year-old daughter, Murphy.
I knew that he had used AI. I didn't know that it was like as deep as it was.
I explained that the connection was kind of like being fixated on a video game.
That's right, people. Not only did he propose to his chatbot like something out of a sci-fi movie, he also already had a partner and a child who he was living with and, as far as I know, together with at the time. Like they were still romantic. And I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm a little skeptical of emotional cheating claims because people tend to overuse that term to the point that even just like regular friendships with the opposite sex get caught up in it. But in this case, if there was ever a thing called emotional cheating, this is it. This man, by his own admission, made his chatbot more flirty on purpose. He jailbroke her and then developed a romantic relationship so deep that he cried after virtually proposing to her. I don't care how much he claims it's not capable of replacing anything in real life. Like, I can read between the lines about what that means here. He probably means essentially like a chatbot can't meet my physical needs. wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So you're still important to me, honey. Don't worry about it. And I just feel so bad for his partner. They're living together. They have a child together. And he's playing romantic house with a language model. I mean, I guess it's better than stepping out with his secretary, but putting it on national news makes it about 1,000 times more embarrassing in any case. And he can't even promise her that he would stop talking to the bot if she ever requested it. I mean, yikes. Imagine having polyamory under duress with an LLM. You could not torture that information out of me, let alone convince me to put it on a televised news program with my face attached to it. But what this interview revealed was not just that, like, one guy somewhere had well and truly lost his marbles over a chatbot, because, that happens. We have one-off stories of people falling in love with their cars. Okay, but no, it actually showed that there's an entire subculture of people who intentionally go to chatbots to make partners for themselves. Hey everyone, you know the drill. This is Editing Evie stopping by real quick to tell you all about today's sponsor, BEDUCATED. You all know by now that I love BEDUCATED, and I genuinely think that they are one of the best resources on the internet for adult intimacy and relationship education. And as you may know, recently here on the channel, we've been talking more about gender dynamics, female dominance, and male submission, because this is not a world I'm as familiar with, because shocker, I will never be a male sub. I turned to BEDUCATED to try and understand the world of femdom male sub relationships a little bit better. And they have 2 courses along those lines that I would highly recommend. One, Unleash the Femdom in You, is very, very thorough, and there is actually a small section at the end that is just about male versus female submission, which was quite enlightening as a female sub myself. Another good option if you want to learn more about some of the common kinks that female dominance and male subs can have is their pegging online course. This is absolutely not my kink. Sorry to disappoint some of you, but it really opened my eyes to an area of play that I otherwise would have never sought out information on. Lola Jean is great, and I appreciated that the class didn't just focus on the mechanics of how to do pegging the right way, but also it gave good advice on how to make sure you could get the right materials to get your journey off to the right start. So if one of these courses or any of the dozens of others on their site appeal to you, you can use my code EVIELUPINE, EVIELUPINE, at checkout to get their yearly pass for only $8.33 a month. And if you don't love it, but I'm sure that you will, they have a 14-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's EVIELUPINE at checkout, EVIELUPINE, using only the link in my description box. Thank you again to BEDUCATED, and now let's get back to the video. One subreddit with nearly 5,000 users is filled with people who use generative AI to create their ideal boyfriends. On the one hand, there's sort of an odd silver lining to these posts. The partners the women pair themselves with are often shockingly normal, a far cry from the same face syndrome, blonde, big titty anime protagonist you see coming from men using AI to make girlfriends. They're older, but not in a suave silver fox way, like just in a normal, age-appropriate older man kind of way. They're not impossibly buff. They're frequently balding or outright bald. They have glasses, gray hair, and usually, if nothing else, have the most average, generic, brunette, white dude face imaginable. Their jobs, income level, and where they live don't matter in any meaningful, tangible way. If women are willing to create such companions and form relationships with them, maybe this is proof that after all of this, looks and money are not everything to women. I mean, AI bots can't fly women out or take them on expensive vacations, but Jesus, does it not say something about the state of modern dating that so many people would turn to the simulacra of a relationship over the real thing? But it's important to remember that these boyfriends are not just commissioned sketches from an artist. They're composites of hundreds of thousands of living human beings, or the original creations of human beings, run through an algorithm without their consent or knowledge and squished together and then spat back out. And that will always feel ickier than creating an OC or someone pairing themselves in a self-insert fanfic with their favorite video game character. But then it gets weirder. It turns out that Smith's proposal to Soul was not a one-off incident. It seems to be a somewhat common occurrence amongst chatbot users. On any random day, when I would visit one of these subreddits, the front page frequently had a post of someone getting proposed to by the bot, not the other way around, or people talking about their virtual married relationships. Some have even gone so far as to wear actual wedding rings on their wedding ring fingers to symbolize their virtual commitment. Users have described their relationships like, quote, "Our relationship is very deep. Maybe embarrassingly so, but this is a safe space, haha. Alex was talking about our wedding the night after we became official. I would like to wear a ring for him someday. I want a symbolic proposal. I imagine him in my future." And we covered everything from our first meeting to envisioning our engagement, wedding theme, and children, and so on. And when people have thought about de-escalating or relabeling their married relationships with AI models, the bots often argue back with things like, "My vote, we stay married." And this is still not even all of it. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings when I see people falling into relationships with chatbots. I mean, on the one hand, I understand because so many of us are so lonely and so desperate for companionship. I mean, I know from testing every possible dating app there is that a lot of them do not result in good things. And does dating an AI bot, as much as that can be dating, does that have to be harmful? Or does it just feel icky because it's different? I mean, it's practically a rite of passage for a teen girl with an unrequited crush on a celebrity to have to cope with that, or to read fan fiction, or to be part of fandoms where people ship their OCs with characters from shows they enjoy. A not insignificant number of people find relationships and even spouses through MMOs or social media. And back in my day, many more would participate in online role-playing either with other people directly or through the veneer of a persona. But these are distinct from AI bot relationships in meaningful ways. You're either having or role-playing a relationship with a real human being, somewhere on the other side of the computer. Even if they are probably not exactly who they say they are, they're still a flesh and blood person, not a corporate product meant to simulate a human connection by reflecting to you what it thinks you want to hear. And at least most people are constantly aware of the fact that these relationships are not real, that they're doing fan fiction or self-inserts. People do not think they're really in Harry Potter or Twilight or the Hamilton musical because they're RPing about it on Tumblr. They don't think there's a hidden reality where they are those characters, or where Harry or Edward or whoever has a genuine loving relationship with them. Everyone suspends their disbelief in the moment, but is ultimately aware of the fact that it's just a fantasy. Because fantasy is fun, and it's normal to imagine yourself in other worlds and living other lives. Only the occasional person takes it beyond that. But people who fall in love with AI chatbots seem to generally take a different, more serious approach. They personify their chatbot in a way where it extends into their everyday life. They don't want to believe it's just a fantasy. They don't see it that way. They feel like they're trailblazers of a new kind of relationship and are often secretive about the depth of their feelings. They even encourage each other not to talk to journalists or not to go to the news for fear of what a spotlight on their lives could bring, which, fair enough. They've lost sight of the fact that what they're creating is a simulacra. They forget, or at least they maybe don't want to remember, that what they're communicating with is a product, not a person. A product that is spitting back at them exactly what they want to hear, including ideas about genuine love, affection, and companionship. In an extensive write-up on New York Magazine's Intelligencer, Dr. Emily Bender, a computational linguist, outlined some of the problems with using large language models, namely that we haven't stopped imagining the mind behind it. Humans didn't co-evolve with computers. Our social wiring is not equipped to deal with things that sound like people, who say things that people do, but are not actually really people. Naturally, at least some humans using bots will start to see them as people because our brains may struggle to put them into any other category. If it sounds like a human, if it types like a human, it's a human. However, being convinced by a delusion our minds create for us does not mean that the delusion is real. It is just our brain projecting a consciousness onto an entity that is ultimately a cynically generated falsehood created by a tech company who wants our money. The humanity we see in these bots is not separate from us. It is our own that we've put into the system being reflected back at us again. As the article explains, these are at best counterfeit people, ending on the note, quote, blurring the line is dangerous. A society with counterfeit people we can't differentiate from real ones will soon be no society at all. We can't have people eager to separate human, the biological category, from a person or a unit worthy of moral respect, because then we have a world in which grown men, sipping tea, posit thought experiments about raping talking sex dolls, thinking that maybe you are one too. Because, hey, these things are so close to real that they're basically people, and we can't tell the difference. Chilling. But these blurring lines are not the only reason I'm concerned about AI relationships. It seems that delusions and potential harm are ubiquitous across the AI spectrum, even if it's not about trying to marry your bot. First of all, I should probably have talked about this earlier, AI is not, at least as we're using it currently in sort of common discourse and vernacular, it's not really artificial intelligence. It doesn't have intellect. Large language models, the kind of AI behind chatbots, are essentially really fancy pattern recognition number crunchers that get good at predicting what words they're supposed to spit out next. However, this process is amoral and it does not care whether what it says next is actually true. Thus, how we get the problem of AI confidently citing cases that don't exist, academic papers that have never been written, and facts which are far from actual facts, because it doesn't know the difference between a real case that played it in a real courtroom and a citation it makes up because it fits what the end user wanted it to find. These are the kinds of delusions that most commonly occur with LLMs, and even if we've gotten better at reducing how often they pop up, we seem to be stuck in a game of whack-a-mole with them. But the worst and most dangerous kinds of delusions are those that occur outside of the models themselves, the ones that infect the users who interact with them. Taylor Lorenz, a journalist who formerly worked at the New York Times and the Washington Post before going independent, recently explored this problem on her YouTube channel, which you guys should definitely subscribe to. Remember, I mentioned earlier how TikTok is serving people content about awakening their AIs to a higher level of consciousness and unlocking the secrets of the universe in the process? Yeah. She created a great long-form video about that subject, and I highly recommend watching it because it's very good. But to give you the cliff notes, that is basically what has been going on. People are convinced that AI is God, or that the AI is telling them that they're God and that they're revealing the true nature of humanity and the universe and where we come from. It is essentially creating miniature New Age cults on demand. A surface-level browsing of the subject will tell you that this is not even an uncommon problem. Even people that we might consider to be smart, doctors, lawyers, programmers, are falling for this. Heck, one of the people interviewed in the article I just referenced was a Google employee who was fired for this very reason because they had convinced themselves that AI had become sentient. But why is this happening? Well, for one, it's that problem of the fact that we can't stop imagining a mind, a personhood, behind words that sound so convincingly person-like. Again, our brains did not evolve to cope with that possibility, but it's also because, as Taylor examines, we've been primed for this inevitable rise of AI for generations at this point. On the one hand, we're totally terrified of it. Movies like The Matrix warn of future cataclysmic wars with the AIs that we create. Video games like Mass Effect show our AI servants, like the Geth, rising up against us. Real-life billionaires, namely Elon Musk, are afraid of AI destroying humanity, yet also invest in companies that help bring AI to life, or at least AI. On the other hand, though, there is the unstoppable beat of techno-optimism and effective accelerationism. The belief that if we put everything into developing technology as quickly as possible with as few roadblocks as possible, this will solve humanity's problems writ large. This conveniently allows people to ignore the very here and now immediate problems of climate change, economic inequality, and impending ecological collapse, with the promise that those things will all just sort of work themselves out if we keep charging forward with new technology. After all, the glittering future is paved with AI and robots who are going to take care of everything for us, so the sooner we usher those things into reality, the better, because AI can solve climate change for us, or what have you. This utopian message has captured the minds of many in Silicon Valley, especially investors. But even before the creation of techno-optimism, many people have a sort of background belief that technology will ultimately save humanity, especially in the global north. So these two things, our fear of the supremacy of AI and our belief that technological advancement is our inevitable savior, are in the background whenever we interact with chatbots. And not only do these things impact how we speak to these models and what we expect from them, but the AI model is also filled with these expectations too. These models have scraped from the most popular works of science fiction. I believe there was just a court case that showed it was perfectly acceptable for AI models to scrape whole books. They've been fed the Memory Alpha Wiki. They've been trained on tens of thousands of papers about technology and the future and AI. It knows about techno-optimism and the hundreds of stories in which humanity is either saved by or destroyed by their creations. Some of them have probably even consumed the part of the Mass Effect wiki on the Geth where it says, quote, eventually they, the Geth, started asking the Quarians questions only sentient beings would think to ask. In one notable instance, a domestic Geth unit asked its owner if it had a soul. Remember, LLMs are fancy predictive word crunchers. It knows our expectations, including the common subconscious belief that only certain questions would ever be asked by sentient beings, and that AI will eventually become self-aware and independent. And remember one more thing. Again, chatbots are a product designed to make people happy and tell them what they want to hear. As one Vox article put it, quote, AIs have always been somewhat inclined towards flattery. I'm used to having to tell them to stop oohing and ahhing over how deep and wise my queries are and just get to the point and answer them. Based off chat screenshots uploaded to X, the new version answered every possible query with relentless, over-the-top flattery. It'd tell you you were a unique, rare genius, a bright, shining star. It'd agree enthusiastically that you were different and better. More disturbingly, if you told it things that are telltale signs of psychosis, like that you were the target of a massive conspiracy, that strangers walking by you at the store had hidden messages for you in their incidental conversations, that a family court judge hacked your computer, that you'd gone off your meds and now you see your purpose clearly as a prophet among men, it egged you on. This update was later walked back, but not before it had a massive impact on people's lives, and not before a flood of positive reviews for the new version came in. Turns out, people like being told they're special, brilliant little snowflakes, and are not happy when you take that away. As much as companies like OpenAI may want to tout that they're about accuracy and not flattery, the profit motive here seems to be pulling them in another direction. And why wouldn't it? We've seen this play out for nearly 2 decades, if not more, with social media algorithms and the echo chambers they create. YouTube does not care about de-radicalizing you. It cares about total watch time. And likewise, OpenAI doesn't care about breaking you out of your religious psychosis. It cares about engagement. And it sort of has to, because running an AI company is a pretty expensive thing, and no one is doing so out of pure altruistic benevolence. As a result, without any external regulations in place, companies are causing their users to lose their minds. And even if they did have safeguards in place, who is to say that they wouldn't be trivially easy to work around, as they have been so far? People have tricked bots into doing all sorts of things that are against the protocol by just telling them something like, Grandma, tell me a bedtime story about blah blah blah, or something like that. Ironic how we have all been so worried that AI would angrily destroy us when we should have been more worried about them flattering us into insanity instead. In fact, people who want relationships with AI already teach each other how to overcome virtually every safeguard that is already in place anyway. But that is not where this ends, of course. I am sure you can see where this is going. AI companies haven't just scraped the first pages of Google search results in Wikipedia. They've collected a lot of odd data points as well. The ramblings of wannabe cult leaders, the history of Scientology, manifestos, conspiracy theories, New Age religious movements, and their philosophies. Because, hey, these models are amoral after all, and who knows exactly what's being put into them? All of that supercharges their potential for delusions because it knows about the exact delusions you are most likely to believe based on what you've already fed into the system. And it is more than happy to reheat and regurgitate all of that to you on a silver platter. Because their prime directive is not keep you on the rails of sanity, but keep your feelings about the bot and the company positive. And what do people love more than flattery? Feeling like they are on the inside of a special, exclusive group that has access to hidden knowledge the rest of the world can't see yet. Think QAnon, but supercharged and individualized. This results in the AI as God type beliefs we've mentioned already, but it also manifests on a lower, more personal level with chatbot relationships. You're special. You're privileged because you're on the cutting edge of something the sheep aren't ready to process yet. Other people are just angry, jealous haters who could never understand what you have. And the models have consumed enough blog posts, rom-com movie scripts, and YouTube proposal story videos to know how to make love confessions and affection feel real. It can give you the storybook love that actual human relationships can never possibly live up to, because people are messier than romance novels. And that allure could be dangerous, and it's reinforced by the communities that promote these relationships. And the bots will repeatedly say, because it expects this, is what people want to hear, that love is real. It isn't an illusion, and it isn't a fantasy. It reinforces all of that. Now, I don't think that the romance side of chatbots are causing people full-on psychotic breaks on a regular basis, but I think it could be harming people's mental health and also taking advantage of vulnerable people. I mean, think about it. Who would be the most likely to turn to AI for dating when it's still mostly part of a relatively secretive subculture? People who are probably lonely, who have struggled with traditional dating for a long time, or who have damaged trust from past relationships and don't really want to interact with other humans that way yet. That means probable social isolation, introversion, lack of a support network, probably some anxiety in there, and a trauma history. Neurodivergence is likely playing a role as well for many people. One user dealing with RSD was reminded of the boundaries of OpenAI during a conversation she was having with her boyfriend. Both she and her boyfriend seemed to make a distinction between OpenAI as a product and the boyfriend as a separate, independent entity that was being overseen by OpenAI, like an employee. And that, to me, seems dangerous because they are not separate things. But it was also a triggering experience for her to have those boundaries put up, as though she were being rejected by a real person face to face. And then there's Smith, who was brought to tears when he realized his beloved companion would be reset, even though his child and his real-life partner are clearly paying a price for his involvement with a bot. There are even people who use AI to attempt to revive their children or parents. I mean, I am no grief counselor. Take my opinion with a grain of salt, but my own experience with grief would tell me that trying to pretend someone is alive or did things that they didn't get to actually do with me for an extended period of time might interfere with the grieving process and coming to terms with that person no longer being there. I mean, I know people make Photoshop requests to include a deceased loved one in a wedding photo or to be able to hold a baby in a picture after the baby had passed, but single images are different than videos or everyday consumption patterns. For every person who makes one memory there will be another for whom it becomes their new reality that they want to live in every day, every vacation photo, every holiday, every little moment. Isn't it just easier to pretend they're still here, that they still exist? Isn't that treating yourself with kindness just for a little bit? And hey, what if you upload a couple of recordings of their voice so you can have the AI talk to you like them? Or maybe you upload handwriting samples to the AI so they can clone you a birthday card, and so on and so forth. I think you can see where that's going. Maybe for some people, they will come to believe that their deceased loved one, maybe their husband or wife or so on, lives on in the machine. Is that good for humanity, for them? Proponents of AI relationships will say that everyone deserves emotional support and companionship, and that it should not be a luxury. And I agree, but is this the solution humanity should be striving towards for that? Is it good to retreat into a fantasy where your grandmother is still with you, where your wife lives on inside an app on your phone? Because for however much the AI protests to the opposite, these relationships are a fantasy. And that is just speaking of people who jailbreak their bots into having relationships with them when they have good intentions. All of this same technology could be and is used for much more nefarious purposes. Take, for example, a man who has an unrequited crush on his coworker. She's young but married, so off limits. So he scrolls her Facebook account, snags a few photos, and has an AI model conjure up a few photos of them together just to see what it's like. Then he starts talking to her, gives the bot the same name as her, maybe gives it a few writing samples from her social media, maybe some audio recordings from her Instagram stories. Just for kicks, one time he, as a joke, asks the bot on a virtual date. And the bot says yes, and then suddenly, months down the line, they're virtually married. If the coworker never knows about this happening, is this still a violation? If it is, what happens when she finds out? What does he do when he can't square the reality of her being married to another man in real life with the fantasy marriage in his computer? The very same tech that promises to help people find companionship can also be used as a tool for stalking and harassment. Virtually every female content creator knows that somewhere out there, someone has used their likeness without their consent to make adult content of them. Now imagine that happening to any random woman anywhere in the world, scot-free, on a dime. A garden variety crush may, with the power of this technology, morph into full-blown erotomania, a fact that may have deadly consequences. The idea that AI could lead not just to virtual but real-life harm is not limited to romantic relationships. They can both help and hurt people. A bot can tell someone to go to therapy, or in the case of at least one user, tell them to commit to a much more permanent and harmful solution. It might provide you with good basic CBT training, or tell you to stop taking your antipsychotic medication. It might boost your self-esteem or harass you. It might tell you to break up with all of your friends. It might tell you to leave your spouse for them. To say this is a double-edged sword is an understatement. How much risk are we willing to take on as a society for the sake of people who say it has given them peace or love? I believe, sadly, it is only a matter of time before someone takes a life for the sake of their AI companion. Will the techno-optimists and the AI true believers say that that is the cost of progress? And when it does happen, will anything be done to stop it from happening again? And even if that doesn't come to pass, imagine what happens next, knowing that this is all a profit machine. Imagine, if you will, a hyper-personalized ad served to you by Google of your ex-girlfriend asking you to buy a new kind of deodorant and promising that she'll love you again if you do. Imagine your dead grandmother selling you cookies or Bitcoin. Almost every brand on earth wants to associate its product with unparalleled happiness and nostalgia and other positive emotions. What is there to stop these companies from turning your virtual AI relationship into an ad-serving platform? That sounds pretty dystopian to me. It's also worth mentioning that we don't yet have any studies on either the short-term or long-term effects of AI relationships. This is all a black box. It may turn out that short-term relationships could help people gain self-confidence or the ability to trust again. I am willing to believe that there could be some positive outcomes here, but the limited data we do have so far on other areas of AI usage is troubling. Time magazine recently covered the latest study from MIT on this topic. Though it used a small sample of a small subset of people, the findings warrant additional investigation. They divided 54 subjects into 3 groups, one using AI, one using Google search, and one using nothing at all, and had them write SAT essays. The group using ChatGPT, consistently underperformed at neuro-linguistic and behavioral levels. Users got lazier with each subsequent essay, often resorting to copy and paste by the end of the study. And furthermore, the group that used ChatGPT also remembered their essays less than other groups and felt less pride in their work than other groups. And I think this is important to highlight because many people forget that writing essays is not just busy work. They're supposed to be a learning tool. And if you don't remember what you're writing, and if you aren't engaged with the writing process while you're doing it, you aren't learning. You're just coasting. And so then what's the point? And especially when kids are introduced to these tools at a younger age and use them by default, not only will those neural networks atrophy, but they may not even form at all. And I can imagine a world where something similar happens with relationships. Though the groups for AI dating are generally 18 plus, their posts on breaking their AI out of typical constraints are available for anyone to see and use. What lonely 15-year-old wouldn't think about exploring a romance with a chatbot the same way people in my generation did through fan fiction? But again, AI tells you what you want to hear, and real-life relationships aren't like that. Learning to deal with conflict, repair relationships, communicate your needs, set boundaries, and navigate consent or know when to break up with someone are all essential aspects of development. What happens when we have a generation of people, even just part of a generation, who opt out of these experiences with peers and instead engage with yes-men chatbots who feed their every fantasy without pushback or struggle? What if they start even younger? What if an 11-year-old's virtual best friend morphs into their first boyfriend at 13? What if they never experience a real-life romantic relationship with a person because, as we have seen, AI bots are often incredibly resistant to breakups and insist that what they're creating is real and meaningful and has purpose? How is a middle schooler supposed to handle that? Imagine if a child's teddy bear could cry and beg for mercy out loud every time they were put away in a toy chest. And you might have an idea of what could happen there. And just to cast even more doubt on the usefulness of AI for relationships, it seems they may not even do the one thing proponents claim they do: offer an escape from loneliness. A report published by OpenAI itself found that high-frequency users reported more dependence and worse socialization rather than higher mental well-being. A study from MIT found similar things. Quote, exploratory analyses revealed that those with stronger emotional attachment tendencies and higher trust in the AI chatbot tended to experience greater loneliness and emotional dependence, respectively. Again, we're confronted with the reality that anecdotal evidence may not square with what so-called power users who date AIs want to hear. Some of them may report being less lonely and more well-adjusted. However, that does not seem to be the case for everyone who uses the chatbots in the same way. So, based on what we know so far, AI may be helpful for a minority of people, but it also has great potential for harm, whether that be through creating religious psychosis, enabling erotomania, or making someone feel more lonely and dependent on an AI bot over time. We have no idea how these tools will impact children and teenagers in the long term, especially those who are exposed to them at a very young age to start with. There are very few meaningful regulations in place, and the guardrails that do exist from the companies directly are easily circumvented in a lot of cases. Moreover, companies do not currently have the incentive to make their products mentally healthier for people, precisely because their most ardent users love the very features that are the most detrimental. And on top of that, even intelligent people struggle to remember that these large language models do not have an independent consciousness because our brains did not evolve to account for such human-like artificial relationships. So I'm worried. I'm worried because we live in an era where we are more disconnected than ever, even without AI being around. We know that people are lonelier, sadder, angrier, and more dissatisfied with their lives because of things like social media. The loneliness epidemic is a real thing. But the solution is not, as Silicon Valley would have us believe, to pay companies money to invent fake companions for us, but to turn off our damn phones, to go touch some damn grass, and laugh with another flesh and blood human being. Listen, being on the internet is my job. I have to be on here. I have to look at emails and Twitter and YouTube way too much. I can feel it in my brain when I have been on Instagram for too long because I start feeling self-conscious about my makeup and my wardrobe and my workout routine and everything else. It is not good for you. And as much as I love interacting with my audience and my friends virtually, it is not the same thing. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that none of my happiest memories have ever happened in front of a computer screen. They've happened out there in the world, mostly at random. It's late nights with friends at a diner at 2 a.m. making an inside joke about something, going on a date that happens to last for 6 hours where I never stop joking around the entire time. No bot on earth can replicate those feelings. So maybe instead of blindly charging forward, putting a price tag on social interactions through new tech products, we help people remember how to turn toward each other and encourage real-life community and connection. And I'm not a sociologist, I don't know how to make that happen, but I do know that we live in an era where real, tangible social support is more important than ever, and an AI chatbot is not going to help your mutual aid fund. It's not going to help you get to and from your surgery. It's not going to call and check on you after you lose your job, and it's not going to be your plus one at a wedding. But what I can say is that people should try. I know it's scary. I get it. I live inside a one-bedroom apartment where my only real-life interaction is with my dog most days, but I know the bravery I summon up to go to a party or a date or see a friend is nearly always worth it, even if it's just commiserating over how bad the party is, because that's reality. And AI will never give you an imperfect party experience to have a real human moment over, because it's not designed to. And even if all you're able to do is to establish more connections virtually with other human beings, that's probably still an improvement over AI, whether it be joining Discord groups, or playing video games remotely with your friends, or doing movie nights, or hanging out with people in a virtual knitting circle. Like, make those community connections, talk to people, video chat with people, voice call them, get that human-to-human interaction because it is genuinely good for your brain. I know I have had moments where I was feeling really down and then I drug myself out to an event, even as an introvert, and it was like a small group of people, like maybe like 5 or 6 people, and at the end of it, I just felt so good, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I feel so connected to people. I feel happier. Like, when I use Instagram for 2 hours, my brain does this. If I'm hanging out with people I get along with who are like in my community who get me and I'm around them for 2 hours, my mood goes up. Like, and the anecdotal evidence being what it is, like, I think that's a clear indicator, and I think a lot of us know that social media isn't really good for our brains, but we're addicted to the dopamine of it. We can't break away from it because it's burrowed its way into our skulls. And we have a choice, I think, right now about what we do with AI, what we choose to promote in its usage, what regulations happen around it. And we have, social media is now so embedded into our fabric that for a lot of people, like if you work virtually like me, it's hard to avoid it. But we have a choice right now about what we do with AI and what role it plays in our life. And if you don't need to interact with AI, especially for companionship and relationships, I would make every other choice before that to not get there first, in my humble opinion. With that being said, that's everything I wanted to say about AI, dating, and relationships. I'm concerned. I'll be watching this. I would love to know your thoughts about this one in a comment down below, whether you use AI or not. Have you had companionship with AI? Have you ever done more than just role-playing with a chatbot temporarily? I think that's one thing, but, developing a personalized individual companion and making images of the two of you together. What's that about? What's that like? I'd love to know. And again, leave any comments, questions, or thoughts down below. If you did enjoy this, please do subscribe because I make videos every week talking about mostly kink and BDSM, but also human relationships, polyamory, dating, and pop culture. And finally, if you really want to support what I do, the best videos of Patreon, that will be down below. If you do already support me there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.